Hi, I'm Brenda Quintana coming to you from the Beehive. Today I'm going to show you how to make 20 note cards out of just one sheet of designer series paper using the Eastern Palace Suite bundles that are available in May of 2017. You can see what they include by clicking on the link in the description of my video. And after May, all the products in the bundles will be available for purchase separately. These are the cards that you can make using my One Sheet Wonder. There are 10 designs, 2 of each design for a total of 20 note cards. And you'll notice that I've done some in portrait mode and some in landscape mode. So there's a variety of different note cards in this group. And then after you've stamped the note cards, I recommend that you put them in my note card treasure chest. The tutorial for this treasure chest is available free with a $15 purchase in my Stampin' Up! Store. And you can just open up the lid of this chest and put your note cards, and the envelopes are already inside. Then the note cards and this treasure chest will make the perfect gift. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is to cut up the designer series paper using my One Sheet Wonder pattern. I will post a photo of this pattern on my blog with written instructions so that you can refer back to it. You will need a 12 by 12 inch piece of designer series paper. I'm going to be using a piece from the Eastern Palace designer series paper. And you're going to want to look for a colored pattern with more color than white space so it will contrast better with the very vanilla note cards. And the other thing you're going to want to look for is a consistent, tightly spaced pattern that will look better when we die cut shapes into it. So for my note cards, I'm going to be using this side because it's dark and has a consistent pattern rather than this side that has a lot of light space and a pattern that's a little bit too far apart. So I'm going to use my Stampin' Trimmer to cut up my designer series paper piece. So I'm going to slide this into my trimmer and I'm going to line it up with the 5-inch mark. And I've got my cutting blade down here at the bottom. I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to cut at the 5-inch mark. You're going to end up with 2 pieces. Put the bigger piece aside for the moment and then turn your piece so that the 12-inch side is up at the top, and now you're going to line it up with the 6-inch mark. My cutting blade's at the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and cut. Now you're going to have 2 pieces that are 5 inches by 6 inches. Let's start off with the first piece, and I'm going to make sure that my 6-inch side is up at the top, so just do a double check that it's the 6-inch side. And now I'm going to cut this into 1.5-inch strips on the 6-inch side. So you're going to get 4 strips that are 1.5-inch wide out of this piece. So I've got it lined up at the 1.5-inch mark. So I'll make my first cut. Slide this over to the 1.5-inch mark again. Get my second cut. And then just make sure it is aligned and make the last cut. So now I have 4 strips that are 1.5 inches by 5 inches. Then I'm going to take that second little piece that I had before that is 6 inches by 5 inches. And now I'm going to make sure the 6-inch side is up at the top. And then I'm going to cut this piece at the 3-inch mark. I have 2 pieces that are both the same size, and I'm going to take one of the pieces and put the 5-inch side up at the top, and I'm going to line it up with the 2.5-inch mark. Give it a cut. And then I'm going to take my other piece and put the 5-inch side up at the top again and line it up with the 2.5-inch mark and give it a cut. So now I have 4 pieces that measure 3 inches by 2.5 inches. Then I'm going to bring in that big piece from the beginning that measures 7 inches by 12 inches. And I'm going to put the 12-inch side up at the top, and I'm going to cut it at the 5-inch mark. So just line it up and give it a cut. You'll have two pieces. Put the bigger piece aside and then turn this 5x7" piece so that the 7" side is up at the top, and line it up with the 3.5" mark and give it a cut. So to cut these on the diagonal, I'm going to make some further marks on these pieces. What I'm going to do so I can cut both pieces at once is I'm going to stack both of these pieces, and I'm going to make a mark 1.5 inches over on the bottom here. On the opposite long side, I'm going to make 1.5 inches over from the other side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place those pencil marks along my score line, line them up till they look good. And remember, I've got my second piece underneath here, so I'll be cutting two pieces at once. Once those pencil lines are marked up, place your guide down and you're going to cut. And since we're cutting through two sheets, I'd go back and forth. And there you go, you've got your 4 angle cut pieces. And now we just have the last piece, which measures 7 inches by 7 inches. And we're going to cut this one into squares. So I'm going to take one of my sides and put it up at the top and line it up with the 3.5" mark and give it a cut. And then I'm going to take one of the pieces and put the 7" side up at the top again and line it up with the 3.5" line and give it a cut. And then I'm going to do the same for the other piece. Line up the 7" side up at the top with the 3.5" mark and then give it a cut. So now I have 4 3.5" squares, and we need to do just one more thing with these squares. And for that, you're going to need your Big Shot. I'm going to use my magnetic platform, but you can use your regular platform if you wish. And then I'm going to place one of my cutting plates down on top of my platform. You're going to need the squares that you just cut, and I'm going to make them into 2 stacks of 2. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces with my die at a time. So I'm just going to stack them onto my magnetic platform. And then I'm going to need this shape right here and this shape right here to make the die cuts. So for the first one, I'm just going to place this centered on my square on the diagonal. And then I'm going to take my second shape and I'm also going to center it on my second stack of squares. And when you like how those look, you can bring your second cutting plate over top and then run these through the Big Shot. I'm going to run them back and forth since I'm cutting through 2 sheets. And here is our first set of die cuts, and you'll have 2 of each of these pieces. And here's our second set, and you'll have 2 of each of these pieces as well. So here's a quick overview of the 12 by 12" piece that has been cut into 20 pieces. And we're going to use all 20 pieces to create the note cards. Now let's create the die cut and stamp pieces that will go on the cards. And to do that, you're going to need a scrap piece of the thick, very vanilla cardstock. And you're going to need the Lemon Lime Twist and Tranquil Tide ink pads. And we're going to start off with this big flower stamp and ink it up in Lemon Lime Twist and stamp it on your cardstock. We're also going to stamp this fancy square shape in Lemon Lime Twist, like that. Then I'm going to take this dotted circle stamp, also in Lemon Lime Twist, and I'm going to stamp it centered in that fancy square image, like that. Then I'm going to take this star flower shape and ink it up in the Tranquil Tide ink pad. And I'm going to stamp it in the center of the flower, ink it up again, and stamp it in the center of my square. And then I'm going to take this little tiny shape, let me ink it up so you can see it better, and I'm going to stamp it on the 4 corners of my fancy square. And those two shapes are done. Then I've cleaned off my little flower and I'm going to stamp it twice in the lemon lime twist so we can cut those out separately. Then you're going to need your big shot, and then you're going to need the piece that you just stamped. And we're going to cut out two shapes at a time using the Eastern Medallion Thinlits. We're going to do the fancy square and this flower shape first. So just take them and center them over top of the images you just stamped. And when you like how it looks, take your second cutting plate and place it on top and then run it through. And here are your first two stamp pieces cut out. And then we just need to cut these smaller medallions. So make sure you center it on them. And when you like how it looks, then run it through the big shot. And we just need to do one more roll. Here's the first one. And here's the second one. Then I've got another scrap piece of thick, very vanilla cardstock, and I'm going to put it on here again. And this time we're going to create that larger medallion piece. So I'm going to be using this circle piece. There's two inner ring pieces. I'm going to be using the one that has the triangle shapes on it. There's two inner shapes, and I'm going to be using the busier inner shape for this one. And so I'm just going to plop that in there. I just want to make sure that the rings are centered within each other. And when you like how that looks, then you can pop your second cutting plate on and run it through. And I'm going to run this back and through to give it a little bit of extra cutting power. And then you can remove these pieces. And you can pick this up, and you'll notice that it's still attached. The circular piece, we're going to need to cut that out with some paper snips. But first, let's go ahead and get rid of some of these little inner chads by just taking your Big Shot die brush and the accompanying foam mat and just rolling this over these pieces to loosen them and get them out of this shape. So I think we've almost got all of them out. So let's die cut the other shape on here, and then we'll cut both of those pieces out at the same time. So now we're going to take this flower piece up here, that on my very vanilla piece, and we're going to take the remaining middle ring and the remaining inner circle, the ones that we didn't use the first time around. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to center them. And then when I like how that looks, I'm going to take my second cutting plate and place it on top. And then we're going to run it through twice. Once and then back again. And then we'll remove these pieces. And again, I'm going to take my foam mat and my die brush and just gently run over this medallion piece to remove all of those little pieces. And there you go, all of the little pieces have been removed. So then you just need to take some paper snips and cut these shapes away from the very vanilla cardstock. So for the circular one, I just come around and snip on each of the points of this piece. It's really quite easy. And there is our first shape. It kind of looks like a doily. It's very beautiful. And then this one, we're going to have to go on the inside. The first one's the hardest one, so just get your scissors in there. And once you've got it started, your flower is going to come away, and it will be easier to get your scissors in there and cut in between each of those petals and remove the flower from its cardstock prison. All right, maybe it's not a prison. Sometimes you want that look, so it's really neat to be able to have the option to cut it away from the cardstock or to actually just leave it as is in your piece of cardstock. And there is the flower medallion. Then we just need to add some die cutting to some of the designer series paper pieces. Now you're going to have 2 each of these, but I'm just going to show you how to do 1. So those shapes match up with these 2 die cuts. And I'm going to take the inner die cuts and we're going to use those to make the pieces a little fancier. So you just need to center these dies right on top of their shapes. And when you like how that looks, place your second plate on top and then run them through your big shot. And then you're left with these really cool pieces, and now we've got little petals that can kind of fold up on your card, so they create this beautiful emblem piece. And this one, we can add one more thing to it. We can add this little middle piece, which I forgot to do, which you can actually do all at the same time. You can put it right in the middle of this, but you can do it separately afterwards as well. You'll just follow this little circle on the inside and make sure you center it on there. And when you like how it looks, you can run it through Big Shot. And now we have a cool center inside of our fancy square. Now we just have to do the remaining stamping and assemble our pieces. So I'm going to go in the order that we cut the One Sheet Wonder. And for that, you're going to need the designer series paper pieces that measure 5 inches by 1.5 inches. And you're going to need 2 note cards. And I'm going to use some Tombow multi-purpose glue to assemble these guys. Then I'm going to take my Tranquil Tide ink pad, and I'm going to use the same stamp on both of these. I'm going to use the Hello stamp, and I'm going to stamp 1 down here at the bottom like this, and the other one you can choose. I'm going to do this one a little higher like that, or you could put it down at the bottom like that. Then all you need to do to finish these 2 off is to fold along the score line and use your bone folder to smooth down the fold. And here are the first 2 cards of the 10 designs. Next, we're going to make these 2 cards. So you'll need the 2 pieces of a designer series paper that measure 3 inches by 2.5 inches. And you'll need another 2 note cards. And here are designs 3 and 4 of the 10 designs. And here are the next 2 designs that we're going to make, the ones with the angle designer series paper. So you're going to need these 2 pieces with the angle cut on them. And you're going to need 2 more note cards. Then I'm going to need my Lemon Lime Twist ink pad again. I'm going to ink up the little dotted circle stamp. And the first one I'm going to stamp down here like that. And then this one I'm going to stamp right here like that. And then I'm going to bring in my Tranquil Tide ink pad, and we're going to be using the Enjoy Today greeting. And we're just going to stamp that in the center of each of those circles, like that. And here are cards 5 and 6 of the 10 designs. So next we're going to do the cards with the 2 shapes on them, and both of these cards are vertical cards, so we'll need 2 more card bases for those, and we're going to need the shapes that we did some extra die cutting with. And here are cards 7 and 8 of 10. And finally, we have these last 2 cards with the shapes cut out of them. Both of these cards are horizontal cards, so you'll need 2 more card bases for that. And then you're going to need these designer series paper pieces with the shapes cut out of them. And there are cards number 9 and 10. And there you go, all 10 designs, and you'll be able to make 20 cards out of just 1 sheet of designer series paper and 1 package of note cards and envelopes. Aren't these designs fabulous? And then if you pair them with my note card treasure chest, you'll be able to give this as a great gift. All the supplies you'll need to make these 1-sheet wonder note cards are available for purchase on my blog. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Bye for now! If you like this tutorial, be sure to check out all the free with purchase tutorials available on my blog. The treasure chest tutorial is just one of the exclusive tutorials that you can choose free with a minimum purchase in my Stampin' Up! Store. Hi, it's Brenda again. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also visit my blog for more information on my projects and to learn about my rewards program, or just watch another one of my videos. Thanks for watching.